And good morning, everybody. This is Grant with State of the Spark on a lovely, lovely morning. And I am going to get right into it today. I have a cup of gratitude we're going to touch on, but we're going to skip other news today. It's a glorious Friday. And you need to actually spend time transitioning, wrapping up stuff for the weekend. And so I don't want to belabor it. And I'm waxing a little philosophical today. I'm really starting to ponder the role of coaching and how we can actually help people improve. And I've been pondering this and taking this to my mastermind. For those of you who use a mastermind, I work with a mastermind. Sometimes I use the Think and Grow Rich version of a mastermind. If you haven't read that chapter, I highly recommend it. Think and Grow Rich. Towards the back, this is my original copy, my OG copy of Think and Grow Rich. In the back, they have a very odd chapter on mastermind, and I highly recommend you check that out. But this morning, I was going to my mastermind, people that I respect and listen to, in order to gain wisdom on coaching and how we can actually help people change, not just training, as we talked about yesterday, where we download skills into people. I love training, not just speaking events where we hopefully inspire people at a speaking event. That's a skill of its own. Not just mentoring, which you could just pull from vast amounts of your own life experience to mentor people. I'm talking about tried and true coaching that allows someone else to grow. So I went back and I was pondering the people that have made the most amount of impact today. So today we're going to get right into the 3 lessons that a prophet, a millionaire, and a bodhisattva all taught me about coaching. And some of them didn't know they were teaching me about coaching. They were teaching me life lessons and the lessons I've extracted from them about coaching, and some did. But before we get into that, a cup of gratitude. Thanks for joining me today. Let's share a cup of coffee together. I want to hear in the comments, what is igniting your life of explosive significance this week? What are you grateful for this week overall? What has stimulated you? I've got to tell you this morning, I am so grateful that I am partnered with Marissa. I'm so grateful that I'm partnered with my wife, Marissa. She is a powerhouse, and I cannot say this enough. In fact, if you stick around for any amount of time, you're going to know that I really am grateful for my wife, Marissa. You guys know that I'm Mr. Charismatic and I'm Mr. Out Here, but Marissa has been diligently building out our production management system. We just moved from an old project management system with our old employees to our new project management system, and that can be a bear. And the details Marissa brings to that are phenomenal, and they make our future easier, and they save us a ton of time. So I'm grateful. Good morning, Nadia. Thanks for checking in this morning. Where are you hailing from today, Miss Nadia? And what are you grateful for? Thanks for the like. I hope you're doing fantastic. So yes, what are you grateful for? And what have you really accomplished this week? And so this week, I'm grateful for Marissa, but I'm grateful for the fact that we've rolled into a brand new project management system with over 200 clients, each of them having multiple projects, and we're doing it with a skeleton crew of 4 people right now. And I'm super grateful for Marissa. So that is my cup of gratitude. What are you grateful for today? I want to hear it in the comments. Bah, 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 da, da, da. So I want to share with you 3 things my 3 mentors have taught me. And the first took place for me, not necessarily even with my mentor, but under my mentor's tutelage. My Christian mentor, this is when I was really getting involved in the Christian church. And this lesson took place in a Ritz cracker encrusted family minivan in a parking lot of an Elks Lodge on a rainy night. You see, we had been managing our church and running our small non-denominational Christian church out of an Elks Lodge for a little bit of time. And we were a small congregation. At our peak, we would have 80 or 90 people in the building. If we were to do an event, we would probably have 100 people or so in the building, but a small church. And the thing about Christianity, or any faith, by definition, it is defined. How's that for fun with Thinking Friday? That's a little bit of logic. So a Christian ministry, or Jainism, or Hinduism, or transhumanism, they all are, by definition, defined. They have a very clear outline of who they are, us and them, what we believe versus what they believe, sin versus righteousness, what happens now versus the afterlife. It's all very clear and very spelled out. Now jump to coaching. And when you coach and train people, it's very organic. But you try to coach from a structured place. You try to have a framework. You know, Spark has the freedom frameworks. We have all kinds of freedom frameworks. We have the freedom framework for Spark, Ignite, Explode, Radiate. We have the freedom framework for small business, MSPBA, which we're writing about right now. We have the freedom framework for legacy building that we actually shared with you this week. We got a lot of freedom frameworks. They're frameworks for us to operate in a certain domain and get a result. And when we coach, we try to also coach with a freedom framework. In fact, I think on Wednesday, I shared Ring and what you should be expecting from a coach. And it was the realizations, and it was insights into actions, and it was new experiences, and it was growth from those experiences. These are all frameworks. But in this situation in the van, this family was in an emotional state. And in that emotional state, they were wanting to leave the church, as people often do. And I was tasked with, and I don't remember how, sitting down and speaking and meeting with this pastor and trying to draw them back to the church so they wouldn't leave. You want a family to stay together. You want a congregation to stay together. You want church tithes to stay together. You don't want people to leave the church. So in that minivan, we went from having a rational discussion to heated yelling, disagreement, stepping out of the van into the night. It hot and sweaty, and then it was raining out, so we got back in the van and continued the conversation because we both wanted to feel good about this change, but it didn't fit our frameworks. So you see, in coaching, when you have a rocky encounter in coaching, Brittany called me out about a marriage counseling thing, which I no longer do. But I attempted some marriage counseling, and I didn't have the right frameworks for that. And we had a rocky encounter, and thankfully we're still friends. But here's the catch about coaching. As much as we want to operate from frameworks, and as much as, good morning, Gina, I hope you're doing great. Thanks for swinging by this morning. As much as we have these rocky encounters, as much as we want to coach from a structured place, breakthroughs happen in the unstructured, organic, emotional places. So as much as we want to have a structured reality, as much as Spark brings freedom frameworks, we know that the real growth in this world happens when we move outside of a framework, when we get organic and allow ourselves to get appropriately emotional. And that's where growth happens. So what is the lesson I learned under my ministry mentor during this season? And it is simply this. The lesson is this. Hear me on this. Take a pause and listen. We begin with rigid frameworks, but we have to graduate to the nuanced navigation of the human psyche. So I met with a friend yesterday, and we were talking about, I had actually two coaching meetings. One was just a casual lunch with the lovely Gina, and or casual bite to eat. And then the other was an actual lunch appointment with an actual coaching client. And I always start these meetings with a framework of how I want the conversation to go and where I think it needs to go. But as soon as you sit down, you start to listen, and your coaching actually starts to adjust. And you want to hand people a framework. But what we've come to realize, and this is why coaches listen for whether or not the student is ready. Because I can actually tell you what to do. But if it doesn't hit home in an emotionally significant way, you're not going to act on it. And if you need a change, I can give you a framework, but the framework won't matter if you're not ready to make the change. And so this happened in my lunch appointment. We had this encounter where we gave a little bit of a framework, but the person was really ready to make a change. Now we'll see. And I told them, I asked them, I said, hey, when we check in January, what metric will we use so that we know that you've acted on this desired outcome? And this person gave me a few ways that we can make a metric. And they know that I am not responsible to get this result for them. They know that they are responsible to get this result. But I want to give them a rigid framework and say, if you do this, and do this, you'll get the result. Why? Because that's what works for me. And that's what works for a ready person. But we'll see. But the lesson from my Christian mentor, and you got to remember, if you spent any time in any faith, not just Christianity, if you spend any time in any faith body, you realize there's some people that always recycle in the same problems over and over and over again. In fact, if any person on this planet, any human has a problem, chances are they experience this problem over and over again. It's because they're sticking to the rigid framework. Even the rigid framework that helped them. You see, when I came into the church, I was given a rigid framework about Christianity, and that helped me significantly. I tell people time and again, getting involved in the church that I got involved in saved my life. It got me on the right track. But at some point, I had to graduate from that. And here's why from this lesson. The lesson is we begin with rigid frameworks because it's helpful, because it's structured, because it gets your thinking going in the right direction, because it frames the experiences you're about to have. But as you have those experiences, they should help you grow. And that's when you need to graduate to understand that there is nuance in encountering people. There's nuance in growth. So that's my lesson from my ministry mentor. The lesson is we begin with rigid frameworks, but we graduate to nuanced navigation of the human psyche. I cannot say that enough. So let me put it in the comments here, because as you encounter people, and if you're a coach, I know that Jessica Ojeda, she's out there doing some coaching. I know that Gina might be even doing some grief counseling. Gina does grief counseling for pet owners that have lost their furry friends. She does this, and she's degreed in it. She might have really good frameworks, but when she sits down with these counseling clients to talk about grief, here you go. No plan survives the first encounter with the enemy, right? The enemy being grief. When she sits down with this family that's experiencing grief, the emotionalism overflows, and then skill has to kick in. Hey, good morning, Jessica. I hope you're doing fantastic. So when she sits down for these grief counseling, she realizes, oh man, I've got all these frameworks, but now I'm going to have to actually become skilled at the nuances of navigating someone within this. Jessica was just thrust into, good morning, Adam. I hope you're doing great this morning, sir. Jessica just received a new coaching job. And in these coaching jobs, they probably give her good outlines and good frameworks. But remember, the nuance of navigating the human psyche is what's going to carry her through. So the frameworks help to get started quickly, but she has to graduate to be a pro. She has to graduate to nuanced navigation of the human psyche. That is what I learned from my Christian ministry mentor. He was phenomenal in my life. They really got me on the right track. They gave me a huge framework. Their family invested in me in years, and there is no way I could actually repay what they've done in my life. Those rigid frameworks, though, later on actually hindered me and created rocky encounters, and I had to graduate to understand there's nuance to encountering people. So let's listen to our millionaire mentor. Here we go. My millionaire mentor, I recall there was a hurricane that came through Vero Beach, Florida. And my millionaire mentor, who I was working for at the time, said, we're going to come out so far ahead on this event, you can't believe it. And all I could see was a roof torn off of one of his large buildings. He owned about 60,000 square feet of retail and shopping center space. And I was, good morning, Laura. I hope you're doing fantastic this morning. Thank you so much for checking in. Laura texted me yesterday or the day before, and she said, I'm finally coming up for air. Laura Gardner is one of the most preeminent event coordinators in Central Florida. If you don't know her, get in the comments of this show or any of the other places and meet Laura Gardner. She's phenomenal. Good morning, Laura. So my millionaire mentor had a hurricane that destroyed a ton of his properties, and all I could see was the destruction. And he came in and said, Grant, you don't understand. We're going to make a ton of money. So the SBA, we were declared a FEMA emergency area, and the SBA was giving preferential loans because we were a FEMA disaster area. And so he was going to get a significant, a seven-figure SBA loan. And if you know anything about this, he had standard loans that were running in the 5 and 6 and 7% for some of the loans he had on the property. Good morning, Vesna. I hope you're doing so good this morning. Thank you for checking in. So this millionaire mentor was trying to get this SBA loan and convert as much of his debt as possible from 5 to 7% to 3%, which is a huge change in the monthly payment. And so he already had a lawyer. This was a very small real estate investment office that I was mentoring under, and he was a millionaire real estate investor, and he had a lawyer, a general practitioner lawyer in the office to make up contracts and to send this out and to fill in the gaps and to what do they call it when they stamp it? I don't remember, but to check on signatures and to make sure everything was going well. This lawyer was actually tasked with general all-purpose work. So he kept him on retainer in the office. And so when he said, hey, I want you to find me an SBA lawyer, I started shopping around, and the SBA lawyers were nearly 5 times as much per hour. And I was hesitant to bring this to him. And I was like, oh man, I know this guy is a millionaire. I know in some things and a lot of things. Notarized. Thank you, Laura. Good night. Laura's the one who's had her coffee this morning, a notary. The lawyer was also a notary and would handle a lot of the notarizations. Thank you, Laura. See, it takes a group. It takes a group to build a single brain. You know what I'm saying? So this lawyer, I said, why don't we just use the lawyer in the office? And he balked at me and said, no, just tell me what these SBA lawyers are. And I was really scared to bring in this because it was super expensive. And I knew this guy would really pay attention to the bottom line. So I was timid and I brought him the quote. And he's like, why did this take so long? Get them on the phone and get them in here right now. He didn't even look at the price. He didn't care. So he knows he would have spent weeks, maybe months, with his general practitioner lawyer trying to figure out the SBA rules and the right way to submit this SBA application and the right ways to schmooze. Small business coaches. What is a small business coach? I've even called myself a small business coach, but what in really is a small business coach? If a small business is made up of marketing, sales, production, bookkeeping, and admin, MSPBA, you heard it here at Spark First. If a small business is made of MSPBA, what do they really do? If you have a nuanced bookkeeping issue, and let's say you have a ton of subscription clients and you're trying to figure out how they are supposed to be itemized in your bookkeeping, what's a small business coach going to tell you? They're going to motivate you. They're going to give you general platitudes, but maybe not. What if you had a nuance? As one of my coaching, I actually had 3 coaching meetings now that I'm thinking of it yesterday. The third one yesterday was with a doula company, and the doulas are fantastic, and they're known as the hospital doulas. And they can't stand how doulas are pushed into the crunchy part of society. They want to make doulas professional and clean and hospital and pros. And they're trying to do this with the word doulas. But I was like, can we use another word? And they said, no, because doula is the only word to describe really what we do. It just so happens that most people think of them as crunchy. So they want to retake the word doulas back so that when people think of professional, seasoned professionals, luxury experience, they want people to think about this. And they said, can you help? You're a business coach. And I said, I'm not the right business coach for you. And they said, why not? I said, because you don't need a business coach. You don't need a messaging coach. You probably actually need a marketing specialist who deals with print and ad campaigns to kind of take the social consciousness of a word back. It's nuanced. Similar to my millionaire mentor who is willing to pay 5 times more for an SBA lawyer than a general lawyer. You should actually be willing to know your problem very specifically. The more specific you know your problem, the more you should be willing to spend for that because you'll spend a lot less time. And the example of my millionaire mentor, he had this SBA loan up and running after the hurricane in just days. Now, he spent out the nose for it, but he knew that he stood to gain. So here's the lesson from my millionaire mentor about coaching. And this is to you if you hire a coach, if you ever pay for coaching, or if you're a coach listening today, hear this. You need to get very specific about the challenge that you or your client or you as client are encountering. You need to get very specific. It will cost you more to solve, but it will save you extraordinary amounts of time. And that is what it's worth. You see, my millionaire mentor, why was he incentivized? Well, not only could he get this SBA loan to replace most all of his mortgage debt from 5 to 7% down to 3%, which is a huge monthly savings. The truth is he wanted to make it to his granddaughter's play. He wanted to make it to his granddaughter's play. And at his granddaughter's play, which was coming up, he didn't want to spend weeks in the office figuring this thing out. Remember what I've said in the past, and I learned this from my millionaire mentor, time is the currency of the rich. Are they rich because they value that, or were they rich first? Chicken or the egg? But if you and I want to have a wealthier life, we need to be willing to spend more to get the right advice. So that backs us into the lesson. The lesson is this. As a coach or as a coaching client, you need to get very specific about the challenge you're facing. Now, if you have a coaching arrangement that goes on for months and months and months, you'll learn each other and you'll learn to target specific challenges you're facing as you go. But what I learned from my millionaire mentor is the time and the energy are worth getting specific about your problem and then being willing to just write that check without thinking. Make it work. If you have to not have coffee for the next few weeks just to pay for that moment of advice. I actually at one point was looking at getting into a legal issue over the name Spark. In our area, someone came up with the I won't go into it for specifics, but they came up with something that was utilizing the phrase spark and the phrase ignite. And I was about to go into this huge legal battle. Well, I had the final insight to just pay a lawyer $200 for 1 hour. And they gave me a single piece of advice that turned into just a letter that went to that client. And I wrote that letter, and that person who could have been competing with our trademark name, basically, that person conceded. We are friends to this day, because I spent $200 for that 1 hour. Now I'm a penny pincher. I don't want to do that. So the lesson is, get very specific about your challenge. It will cost you more to solve, but it will save you tons of time. That was my lesson about coaching from my Millionaire Mentor. And lastly, what I learned from a Bodhisattva. Let's do this. You know, I met the Bodhisattva when I was mentioning, and if you watch the show at all, you know that I've referred to this gentleman before, and I have the utmost respect. This is probably the person, the person I've met, who is a living person who I've had the most amount of respect for in my life. I met him, and I call him the Bodhisattva, but it's kind of funny. I met him ordering a mocha frappuccino with no whip and a spoon at a Starbucks. I was managing a Starbucks, and this man who at the time to me looked like Mr. Magoo. He had a big bulbous nose and balding head and a smile that shone for miles. And Sheila Hallowell, if she's watching at any point today, she knows I'm talking about her ex-husband, not ex-husband, she's been widowed from Bud Hallowell. And he's a guy that we all carry a deep affection for, to this moment, a deep affection for. And I call him a Bodhisattva, and he came in and ordered a mocha frappuccino with a spoon, and he'd eat it, and he'd just smile, and he would just savor that mocha frappuccino. He would eat that mocha frappuccino as a meditation, and I'm not joking. He would eat it as a meditation. So the thing I learned from Bud Hallowell, I've got his book on the shelf. I recommend you buy it to this day, The Quantum Gateway. It's a phenomenal book. Boom. Fantastic book. Bud Hallowell was an Olympic baseball player. People don't know this about him. In the 70s, he went to Japan with the Olympic baseball team. But in spite of that, and I'm going to give you a dad joke pun this morning, he would never try to hit a home run in a coaching encounter. You see, he would find ways to create encounters. He would come into Starbucks and order Frappuccino and watch and then ask me a question. And it would create an encounter. And then for those encounters, he was present, fully present in these encounters. No, he wouldn't jump on his cell phone. No, he wouldn't be distracted. He would use, just like he would eat a mocha frappuccino as meditation, he would use his encounters as a meditation. And smiling and listening, he would look for the strongest way to point you in a direction. Here's the lesson from my metaphysical mentor, Bud Hallowell. Good teachers, good coaches, good teachers tell you the way. Great teachers point the way. People have to learn for themselves by experience, and we could guide them through those experiences. But the lesson I learned from the Bodhisattva is that good teachers tell you the way. Hey, do this. Great teachers point you the way. And what I mean by that is Bud Hallowell had a power to engage you. And he would reference a book and suggest a book, and he might even give you a book. I remember Bud and Sheila gave me I've got them somewhere, 3 books that were phenomenal by a Bodhisattva. And Meher Baba. They were the discourses by Meher Baba. They gave them to me. He would reference a book like The Monomyth by Joseph Campbell. He would reference The Monomyth by Joseph Campbell and then give me this book or give me a link to that. He would hand me the breadcrumbs and he would tell me the wisdom. Hey, Grant, all of this is oneness. I don't know what that meant. Well, I could tell you that is the way, but great teachers point you the way. Bud Hallowell affected my life so deeply. He gave me teachings like Meher Baba's discourses. He gave me teachings like Joseph Campbell's The Hero of a Thousand Faces. He actually, in hindsight, I had already traveled the world, but he gave me insight into the quote, "The height of religion is to dance." which came from Zorba the Greek. Phenomenal book. And I read that book before and I traveled the world with that book, but Bud Hollowell actually gave me insight into that. And he taught me this lesson for coaches. Good teachers tell you the way. Great teachers point the way. So I really, really recommend that you reflect on the mentors in your life. I would love to hear from you what some of Ryan says. Yes, great teachers point you the way. Great teachers point you the way. Ryan Audenweller says great teachers point you the way. They give you great books and great breadcrumbs. I want to hear from you guys. Who have been some of your most powerful mentors, whether you knew them or not, and what are the top lessons they've given you? This is your moment to shine, whether it's in the goals and gratitude group in the comments. Yes, Ryan, tell me, who are the best mentors you've ever had? I want to hear about them because I glean a lot from my past coaches and mentors, but I want to hear from you. So here are my 3 mentors, just to recap, and I'll let you get on with your day. Number 1, for my ministry mentor, we begin with rigid frameworks, but graduate to nuanced navigation of human psyche or life. My millionaire mentor taught me, get very specific about your challenge. It will cost you more to solve, but save you time. And number 3, good teachers tell you the way. Great teachers point the way. And I am meditating on this today as I improve myself as a coach for my clients out there. I'd love to hear how mentors have made an impact in your life. Listen, if you need help with anything, visit us in the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group. Ryan commented to us from over there. Let's get engaged in the conversation about how to make our life better, how to have goals, gratitude, and success, how to level ourselves up. Remember, if you need any tools or resources, we'll be adding more and more to those in 2021 at stateofthespark.com. But remember the mission, please. Ignite your own life of explosive significance and ignite those around you. I hope you have a phenomenal weekend, and I'll